Welcome to Authentic Life Podcast with Grace. During this week podcast, we're going to focus on exploring the theme of conquering your fears and turning weakness into strength. You see, it's an undeniable reality that every individual faces moments of vulnerability and fear. But however, it's important to recognize that divine grace equips us to triumph over difficult times. Isaiah, the 41st chapter, verse 10, it tells us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my right hand." And again in Psalms 56 verse 3, it tells us, "When I'm afraid, I will put my trust in you." So many times that there is generations of the righteous of God. They will live a life of fear and think that this is the life that God has willed for them. When he tells us in 2 Timothy, the first chapter, verse 7, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Before we begin our journey towards conquering these adversities, let us acknowledge that their presence reminds us of our limitations, and fear often grips our heart in the face of the unknown. But it's important that we recognize even the strongest among us are not immune to these emotions. Paul tells us in Hebrews, the 11th chapter, verse 1, he says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen." So the God kind of faith has nothing to do with how much knowledge or skill one has. It's solely believing in God's sayings and establishing it in our belief system and not letting it go. It activates trust that penetrates in the very core of our being. No matter what the circumstances are, no matter what those folks have told you, you hold fast to the promises of God. Because we know that the channel is getting ready to turn, and there's going to be a preordained shift that will cause strength to come in, and it will lead to triumph. You see, when we are activating faith, we are not easy to be swayed to the left or the right. But we boldly decree that I may not see the path ahead, but I trust the one who holds my future. You see, the spirit of fear is connected. Let me say it like this. The spirit of fear will connect a man to a life of bondage. Being enslaved by fear, paralyzed by fear. The principalities and the powers of devils cannot gain access to your life unless you give into the spirit of fear. You see, from Genesis to Revelation, we can discover some wonderful pioneers before us whose faith overcome the testing and the trials that they endure. Today is no different. Activating faith in the scope of the word shall bring forth uncommon results. As we journey through life, let us remember that conquering weakness and fear is not a one-time deal, but a lifetime pursuit. With the God kind of faith, we can face the giants that stand before us, the storms that threaten us, and in such a way that it overwhelms us, and the uncertainties that seeks to paralyze us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher and the perfecter of our faith, with hearts filled with trust, and let us walk towards the strength only he can provide. And so we're not sitting down and looking over this thing and saying, let me try to figure this thing out. But we activate the promises of God. We activate the plan of God, and we tap into the grace of God and recognize that I am strong in faith. I'm not strong just in faith. I'm strong in believing what God said is mine, I'll take hold of. You see, the power and the law of strength is a great commodity to live on, or perhaps to activate in one's life. You see, life tends to bring all kinds of issues, and seasons will arise. And different periods of times it will show up, which can sometimes lead an individual away from the stream of vulnerability. You see, in our journey through life, we often find ourselves facing challenges. You know, those tests that bring limitations. You know that and those times that we push and try to push to a breaking point. You see, at that breaking point, we give up on pursuing the plan of God, and we say, well, I'm going to just do what's natural. During these moments of vulnerability and weakness, we can turn to a higher power. In other words, the divine power of God for strength and guidance, regardless of what the current season you may find yourself in. Or you are navigating through a challenge phase. You have abilities to tap into the divine strength of God and stay rooted on the path of glory. Isaiah, the 40th chapter, verse 29, it tells us, he gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increased strength. So since the Ancient of Days, God has strengthened his people and provided divine stamina to realign the season and the challenges. You see, there are many scriptures and teaching emphasize on the importance of faith and perseverance and trusting in the face of adversity. You see, in that face of adversity, most of the time you want to run. You don't throw your hands up and say, I give up. But we fight the good fight of faith. We comprehend our purpose and recognize that faith is ingrained in our very DNA. Serves as a powerful tool to transform, rearrange, and reorganize and manifest God's purpose in the midst of difficulty. In the midst that you are crying your eyes out over the challenges remain ineffective. But it's through activating the faith of God that we usher into the profound change that are divinely orchestrated. You see, in this notion, it is not just about overcoming physical obstacles, but it's also about conquering emotions, conquering mental thoughts, and spiritual struggles. You see, faith has the power to shift mountains and initiate a reset that gives birth to manifestation of promised reality, unveiled exceptional wonders. You know the story of David and the Philistine giant. It's a timely example of divine strength prevailing over weakness. Now here's David, a young shepherd boy, facing this giant with a slingshot. Only a slingshot and a rock. And faith in God. Against the odds, he triumphed, reminding us of relying on the supernatural, or perhaps the divine power can help us to conquer the unseemly impossible. So, fear will advance weakness. Faith will cause such a grace of God that you become bold as a lion. You see, in our lives, weakness can manifest in various ways. It can manifest in self-doubt. It can manifest in fear. It can manifest in failure. It can manifest in loss. It is important to recognize that acknowledging your weakness is not a sign of defeat, but rather an opportunity for growth and transformation. Just as seeding in the need of strength of the sun and nourishment of the soil to flourish, we too can find strength beyond ourselves. You see, that 4D system do not operate by natural strength. It operates by the plan and the promises of God. So when we tap into divine strength, we find comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our struggle. This strength is not about overpowering our challenges, but about facing them in such a way with strength and boldness and grace. It's about seeking guidance and grasping hold of the shalom provisions and learning to trust the process, even if it takes us to an unexpected turn. So as we navigate through the difficulties of life, let us remember that divine strength is not preserved for the chosen few, but is available to all of us who seek it with sincerity. So by embracing our vulnerability and turning them into opportunities for spiritual growth, we pave the way of divine strength to illuminate our path, show us that even in weakness, our weakest moment, we find the power to arise above and conquer all. You see, mountains of hindrance and delay of the promises of God can shift and be reset by faith and manifest promised reality, reveal the amazing wonders as a result of us trusting God. You know, Jesus tells us in Matthew's, the 17th chapter, verse 20. He tells us very clearly, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be from here, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Travel with me for a moment to the story of the 3 Hebrew boys in the midst of the furnace fire. Would have gotten a different outcome if faith was not active and present. Faith got God's attention, and it brought the visitation of the Son of God, and the climax, or perhaps the environment of heaven, brought deliveries of wonders. So faith changed the story and invite the supernatural on the scene. Faith calls the provision from the 4th dimension to be released from the cosmos of heaven. Faith dominates and is the master key to create and to activate the dominion provision God ordained for a righteous man. Living by faith is not merely a possibility, but a mandate for the righteous of God. It's not a matter of might live by faith, but rather it's an essence of aspect of our identity as a child of God. So faith is ingrained in our spiritual DNA. It defines our very essence. You see, when a man perceives himself or herself as fearful and allow the weapons of fear to take control of their emotions and thoughts, yield to whatever that the devil has to offer, they find themselves trapped and unable to overcome. But however, it's important to grasp the truth that every storm has an expiration date. And we have been sold with a reservoir of empowering grace with the potential to conquer all challenges. Because nothing catch God by surprise. And nothing should catch us by surprise. Paul tells us in Romans the 8th chapter, verse 37. Yet in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. So may we all be inspired to go deeper, go wider, and go higher. And overcome every test, every trial, every assignment to weaken you, to get you to step in or operate with a spirit of fear instead of the spirit of faith. Again, may we all be inspired to channel our weakness into stepping stones towards a deeper connection with God and allowing ourselves to stand strong, not on our own might, but in the strength and the trend that is beyond human limitation. Let's go and activate, manifest, and display the wonders of God at work in our life corporately and individually. You see, the dominion in you is designed to create gardens of Eden everywhere and reveal his glory intentionally. Let's yield to the partnership with the Holy Spirit and let's do exploits. I want to thank you this morning or whatever time of the day you're listening to this episode. I prayerfully hope it has been a blessing to you and inspire you to go deeper and wider in the fulfillment of God's glorious purposes for your life and the works of your hand. Also, I want to invite you to join me on Friday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern for a time of kingdom truths, a time of worship, and a time that the gifts of the Spirit is in operation. Let me tell you how you can participate. One, you can go to our YouTube page and at youtube.com/RoarkLife. Another way, you can just call 412-833-5906. And the PIN number is 63022. Let me give you that number again. 412-833-5906. And the PIN number is 63022. May your week be filled with his wonderful plan and encounters with his glory, with his love and his grace that leads others to marvel at the goodness of God that has been imparted and revealed in your garden of life. Love you. God bless you. And again, thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to share, like, and comment. This helps us to build our station and to impact others with the gospel of the kingdom. Love you. God bless you. Be amazing. And let the amazing love of God flow inward and outward. Shalom, shalom.